I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Tuesday, September the 4th, and I survived the long weekend. I hope you guys had a good time. Big Labor Day weekend and the unofficial end of the summertime, but now we're getting into kind of a busy time of the year for fall. But there were several big feeder cattle auctions that had Labor Day specials. Those guys work whenever everybody else is playing, but they had some plenty good sales, and we'll talk about those here later on in the report. Let's look at how the board ended up late last week. October live cattle futures were down 30 cents on Friday, ending the week at 108.77. Your August had to run lower down the limit on Friday because the lower cash fat cattle trade went off the board. $3 lower at 106.80. We'll be talking about December from now on. It was down 32 cents on Friday, ended the day at 112.97. So we are going to be on the upswing. We're going to try to put in some bottoms. If we haven't already established that last week, we hope to be putting in some bottoms here on your fat cattle trade over the next week or two, and then we should be on the upswing to finish out the year. October feeder cattle were down $1.25 on Friday to end the day at 149.12. August left the board late last week at 149.98. September was down 72 cents at 149.45. They all been hanging in there pretty tight, right around 150, 149, 150. Your fat cattle trade had a hard time getting developed last week. Your packers really were playing hardball. They were buying for a short kill week, and they were trying to take advantage of the last few weeks of a heavy market ready supplies, because we will be getting pretty current and those show lists will be getting shorter, and the supply problem will not be a problem in about another month or so, and maybe within this month sometime. But your last reported market, which I assume the bulk of the trade was at 107. That's where everybody thinks. We don't know how many cattle actually sold in the Southern Plains at 107. Our biggest outlet that reports that market, CBP, did not trade the bulk of their cattle and didn't report that, and USDA had already went home for the weekend, and we just that's how far in the dark we are. We know what goes on in the feeder cattle markets because they're so transparent, but whenever they wait and trade late on a Friday like that, other than the guys that bought them and sold them, there's not a whole lot of people that know what went on. But through Friday midday, Iowa had sold 18,500 for the week. They had sold several of those early on Friday. Market was from 107 to 108, which that's mostly $2 lower. The dress sales from 168 to 171, $3 to $4 lower. Through Friday midday, Nebraska had sold about 7,000, 107 to 108, mostly 170 dressed. And Kansas had sold some cattle, about 1,000 head, and that's the most significant place that we feel like that's where the market's at, but it was only on 1,000 head, but at 107, and we did hear tales that a lot of the feedlots were passing the 107. Don't know if they ended up caving or if they just not going to sell a whole lot, but not expecting a very big volume, which is not a good deal to get into, but chances are your packers are probably going to need some cattle to finish out this holiday week. Even though Monday was off, they're still spinning them along at a pretty good click, and they're going to need some cattle. They don't want to start having to pull contracts this early in the month, because then that leaves them vulnerable for later in the month as the supplies are starting to get tighter, and they sure don't want to do that. Box beef cutout values for last week. The average trade from last week on choice cuts was $212.03, down $1.83, and we've seen the tops on those. We're going to come off now a little bit as the summer kind of winds down, and we'll keep decent demand for some tailgate grilling and things like that. But the next upswing we'll see was when we see holiday buying start. They'll start early for that because they want to be ready for all the Christmas parties and things like that happened there early on in the month in December. But just think about it, we're not that far away from that stuff. But select cuts, the average trade of last week, 203.23. That was down just 40 cents, and your choice select spread just under $9 there. That slaughter for last week was pretty decent, 635,000, with a pretty good Saturday for a holiday weekend. But 44,000 head were scheduled for Saturday, and that's pretty good when a lot of people are wanting to take off that weekend. But the 635,000 for last week was just 1,000 less than the same week before, and 12,000 more than the same week a year ago. So pretty good. But let's talk about some of these Labor Day special sales. They had one in O'Neill, Nebraska at Shamrock had a special on Labor Day. Torrington Livestock Markets, Torrington, Wyoming had one. Russell, Iowa had a good one. But a lot of your mainstream big high volume Monday sales like Oklahoma City, Joplin, Callaway Livestock, and Kingdom City, Missouri, they were all closed. And most all your other little smaller Monday sales were closed. But let's talk about some of these special sales. What about the one in Torrington there? Had a big run there, over 7,000 head of cattle there. But you look at the market report out of there coming on Cattle Market Central, your automated market report, the only one available that quick there. But you look at the steer quotes there, 1,150 head of 8-weight steers, average 859 at 149.50. That's pretty salty. That'd be about 10 bucks over the index, getting deep in your 8-weights. About 1,000 head of 909-weight steers there, average 938 at 146.59. On the heifers, over 1,000 in the 7-weight category, averaging 740 at 145.47, and over 1,200 8-weight heifers, averaging 837 at 142.67. Pretty darn good there. And you see an individual quote that raised my eyebrow. There was 63 head of 922-pound steers, bring 159 in Torrington there. Just for fun, I'll show you this other quote. They had some all-natural 2-year-old Hereford steers there, and they were all natural, grass-fed only, weighing nearly 14, but 124 head of them weigh 1395, bring 106.50. I'll let you guys decide if that was a good use of time and grass, but I think I'd have probably just soon sold those as hard yearling cattle and then bought some doodlers or something to turn out on that grass all summer. But let's look at another market there. Russell, Iowa, Russell Livestock Market. My friend Doug Willett, cattle buyer, I stole this off his Facebook page, but he put this on there. They were doing the national anthem there in Russell, Iowa, and noted that you sure didn't see any kneelers there. And if about any cattle auction you go to, even a production sale, if you did see a kneeler, he probably wouldn't be kneeling long. I know that. Most of the places I've been, but man, did they have a sale in Russell. But they had, you look at the quote, the calves were coming out in Russell, and I mean had some really good calf quotes there. Had a big string of calves there that sold well and really raised the averages on there. But look at 769 head of 4-weight steer calves, average 445 at 192.13, and these calves are going to get higher, guys. But the calves here that I'm quoting, there was over 1,000 of these Schulte cattle. They're black and Charolais cross there, and all these steer calves here just really topped the market. I had 115 head of them, weighing 338, and one drag bring 227. Same run of calves there. 125 head of them weighed 419 at 210.25, and 107 head off the same string weighed 488 at 196. Look at a yearling quote out of Russell, Iowa there on Cattle Market Central. 60 head of 800-pound yearling steers there bring 162.75. That's your feeder flash for Tuesday.